So it should be pretty obvious by now how important self-protection is. I posted a little bit ago talking about it. I was driving through the neighborhood on my way back from the store, and I've been kind of, I got another channel. It's more of outdoors hobbies, archery and fishing, and I've never really got into firearms, and that's kind of my next hobby that I'm gonna get into. Growing up, my uncle used to take me shooting all the time. We would go out to the desert and go skeet shooting and just hang out. And I was like 5, 6 years old, and he had a little 22 bolt action, rifle. I'd sit there for hours and hours. I'd get empty shotgun shell cartridges and hang them on the ends of the sagebrush and plink them off the trees with iron sights. And firearms were never really that important to me. They were fun. Yeah, I'm big pro 2A. And, even like when I got old enough to buy firearms, the first thing I bought was, a 12 gauge shotgun, because that's what I wanted. I like to go to the skeet shooting range and shoot skeet. Meanwhile, all my buddies were buying, tactical style weapons, SKSs, AKs, ARs, stuff like that, pistols. It even took me years and years and years to finally buy a pistol to keep in the nightstand. And, I just wasn't something I was really all that into or saw the importance of needing. I grew up in Southern California, where owning a firearm's kind of a headache to begin with, and let alone using one for self-protection. And it wasn't really until around 2020, when COVID had happened, and it was kind of unsure if we were going to end up in a full societal collapse and people were going to be in the streets fighting over food. And then the riots were going on, the BLM riots were going on, and at any given moment you could turn down the wrong street and get attacked. Or people were pretty emboldened during those years, and it got pretty scary. And I eventually bought a couple of AR platforms, tactical or assault rifles, tactical style platforms that have a carry pistol, which I never really had a carry pistol. I was just kind of had a nightstand gun, I kept in my nightstand. But now I got a firearm in like every corner of the house. It's just things are getting crazy, And I'm not like some big YouTuber, but we saw what happened to Charlie Kirk, and you just never know, with where everything's going. You can say the political violence is coming from the right, you can say it's coming from the left, but there is political violence happening right now. And I may be walking down the street wearing this Charlie Kirk hat, and somebody decides that's unacceptable, and I get into a fist fight. I have a big political sticker on the back window of my truck. It says "Make Texas a Country Again." Somebody might take that the wrong way, or people are unhinged right now, and it's a very unstable environment we find ourselves in. And this past weekend, I took my sons shooting, my oldest son and my middle son. We went to the shooting range and shot a lot of rounds, and I really took the time, and I'm gonna take more time, to catch my middle son up on all the weapons in the house, how you load them, how you unload them, how you aim them, just responsible, gun ownership, even though he's not old enough to own them, but being responsible around firearms and knowing how to use them. Heaven forbid I'm not home one night and something does happen, and my wife is another person who I need to work with her more on, carrying her own pistol and being comfortable with it and being ready to use a firearm in self-defense, because I don't know where we go from here. I keep hearing everyone scream Civil War, Civil War. Let's pray to God that it never comes to anything close to that, but you never know, right? And I'm really concerned about the political landscape right now. I'm really concerned about where society is going as a whole, and I'm gonna be taking a lot more steps in protecting myself and my family when it comes to being a firearms owner. Everybody always thinks they're gonna be ready, when they carry a pistol. They're like, oh, just pull it out and I'll be ready to use it. It's not like that at all. And a great example was this past weekend. The first magazine or two, I was struggling to hit, a 8-inch disc at, 30 feet, 15 yards. And I know it's not, a torso size, but still. And my oldest son was struggling to hit everything. And he's like, Dad, why? He's like, I'm aiming right at it. Why do I keep missing? I'm like, you're jerking the trigger. You have to learn to squeeze the trigger. And now add a layer of stress on top of that, and you won't be ready. And this is something I realized early on when I first started training jiu-jitsu was, I've been in tons of fist fights throughout my whole life. And going into jiu-jitsu, I thought I'd keep my cool and stuff, but you get that adrenaline spike as soon as you start fighting and this other guy's trying to submit you, you get this huge adrenaline spike. And that was one thing that I really opened my eyes was the importance of training jiu-jitsu was being able to stay calm in a stressful situation like a fight. And the same thing applies when it comes to firearms. Everybody that carries always assumes they're just gonna pull it out and start slinging lead, and yeah, it might be the case, but you might not be hitting the target you're aiming for. It might be the 5-year-old kid, in the background that you didn't notice, or you might not hit the attacker at all, and he's still coming at you. It's a very real possibility. So I'm going to be spending a lot more time with my firearms and shooting more. And I suggest, everybody, left, right, and center, because we don't know where this goes. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic and start fear-mongering everybody, but worst case scenario is you pick up a new hobby. Firearms are a good investment. They never lose their value. You can always make your money back on them if you have to. They don't go bad necessarily. I have a little Marlin, bolt-action Marlin 22 that I shot as a kid. My uncle shot, for years and years and years. The gun's probably 40 years old. Still shoots great. We shot it this past weekend. It's a great fun little rifle. Yeah, I think not only should I recommend that you get comfortable with firearms, get comfortable with them in the house. Even my mom, who is somebody who hated firearms my whole life growing up, she hated them. I had an uncle who unalived himself with the firearm. That was always a fear my wife and my mom and the rest of my relatives around had when I was going through my addiction and stuff, that I would do the same thing. Fortunately, I didn't. But she hated firearms, and I took her to the gun range one time and she enjoyed it. And then my sister and her husband have taken her shooting, and he had I think a little revolver that she enjoyed shooting, and we're eventually going to get her one to carry. She was always working out in LA and stuff like that, in these really sketchy areas. Granted, in California you can't carry, but you know, she's still out here. She travels from grocery store to grocery store. She's in Houston a lot, she's in Austin a lot, and I want her to be safe. And on top of that, you need to learn how, if you can, protect that firearm. You know, that's the one scary thing when carrying a weapon. You know, how many times have we seen a cop get disarmed by some crackhead? You know, it's a really scary thought. And, you know, training jujitsu is one of those things that really, even if it's an attacker, you can't overpower anything. Like knowing small little techniques to escape somebody grabbing you, or somebody trying to choke you, or trying to steal your firearm off you. There's like little techniques that you can learn that even if you're some 100-pound, you know, female, some big 250-pound guy gets his hands on you, you can squirm away and get away and break his grip, and at least get away, you know, and protect, you know, your weapon from him getting a hold of it and, you know, turning it on you. Pretty tumultuous times we're in right now, and I don't know, I have a real good feeling it's going to get worse before it gets better, and it's something I'm afraid of. And making sure my family is ready to defend themselves is a big priority of mine right now. So I think it should be all of ours.